Where does this
I think
go
it's
on
record.
anyway?
Huh?
Where does this go on? It goes
Facebook Live. We go live. So here we are, gang. Hey, this is Coach Rozy. How you doing? With Kevin O'Brien, our guest today on our Chalk Talk. Good to have you here, Kev.
Thank you.
Kevin O'Brien is the big dog physical therapist at AVERA Scared Heart here in Yankton. And how's the business then been going with all the crazy stuff? You guys are open, seeing patients. I know that. You want to maybe talk about that part of it? Then we'll get into some of your background. But how are things been going from the COVID-19 standpoint?
Yeah, it's been a challenge, but we've stayed open throughout the entire process here. I would say we're 60-70% of our normal volume right now, but we're fortunate to have people come in. We have to wear a mask and a face shield, which is fun to wear, but our patients have been very good about it.
So are you wearing masks? Do they have to wear a mask too, or
Yeah.
if they have to, or if they want to?
Every patient has to wear a mask now
Okay.
that comes in. So every staff member wears a mask and a shield too, or face goggles of some sort,
Yeah.
just to protect.
So let me ask you this, from a therapy standpoint, as the patient, does anyone complain like breathing, like hard to breathe, or do any of those type of
Yes.
things? Is it tough to, do you have to change your protocol based on like the person you're working with and if they're having a mask on? How's that?
Occasionally, yeah, but sometimes if there aren't any people around, then we'll take the mask off for a while. If they have to do some cardio type work or some exercises where they're exerting themselves a lot, we'll take it off for just briefly. As long as we keep ours on, we'll protect them at least. We might take it off just briefly and then let them do their thing, then put it back on if they encounter
Right.
any people that are within 6 feet or whatever. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, it's a different world. So
Yeah.
let's back up world-wise and where you grew up. I know you're in sports growing up. What got you kind of into physical therapy? What moved you into that direction? Just kind of
Sure.
your background and let people know who you are and where you kind of came from and all those good things.
I'm from a huge town of Eden, Wisconsin, Eden, which is population 534 when I grew up. I think it's up to 800 now, so believe it or
Woo.
not, it's expanding. But it's about an hour north of Milwaukee and about an hour and a half from Green Bay, so halfway in between in the east central part of the state. So
By Sheboygan?
about 35 miles west of Sheboygan.
All right, Sheboygan Brats.
Yes.
Yeah, there you go.
So I went to high school out there in Wisconsin. I went to UW Stevens Point, which is a Division III school. I played football there, and then transferred to UW Madison to go to PT school, and met my wife. And then
So what made you go PT though? Like when you were in sports, like what was your like did you know when you're in high school like I want to be a physical therapist?
not at all. I was a business major in high school, and then I
Wow.
started experiencing a bunch of back issues. So I had some herniated discs when I was a junior, and between my junior and senior year, I wish I had a Coach Rozy program back then. I would have known how to squat properly. That's when it happened. I was squatting, didn't know what I was doing.
And you were a jumper too, right?
Yeah, I played multiple sports. Yeah.
So do you think jumping had something to do, or just
I just was in-
bad
was in-
positioning?
Lousy posture, lousy body mechanics, lousy awareness. Didn't know how to lift weights. I was trying to lift weights just to try to stay strong and fit, but didn't have any idea what I was doing. Nobody was helping me, and nobody was coaching me through it. So hurt my back, got exposed to therapy, and that's kind of when I changed my major and decided to go into PT.
So you had did you have like a person you go, wow, this is cool, and then start
Yeah.
looking at it from that standpoint, or?
Yeah, I went to physical therapy while I was in Stevens Point my first year in college. That's when it really got bad. I had to sit out. I redshirted my freshman year in college because I was miserable. Didn't have any surgery or anything back then, just rehabbed it conservatively. But then things got better, and I was able to continue to play football, and I did get some training, which was helpful. But that's what sparked my interest in PT. I went to a therapist, and she helped me along a little bit, and that was.
But I could do this thing.
Yeah, I didn't even really know anything about. I didn't even know physical therapy existed back then.
So then from there, once you said, yeah, I want to do this, you finished your undergraduate, and then what you went to, what'd you say?
UW Madison.
Okay.
Yeah.
And from that process, how'd you get from there and being a Wisconsin boy and a cheesehead to going to Yankton, South Dakota?
And a woman, my wife.
Oh, woman. Those dang women.
Yes. My wife she's a physical therapist also, Julie, and she went to the University of South Dakota, and then she moved to Wisconsin for some reason. I don't know why.
See, find you.
Yeah. And so then once she had a child, her sister had a child, Melanie is Julie's sister. She had a child back in 2000. That was when we moved back. We got married in '99, and it wasn't long before we got back to South Dakota, so it was good.
That's right. You've been working with AVERA the whole time then?
Yeah.
And you've been
20
in
years.
Yankton and working for AVERA for that?
Yeah.
full-time. Well, and I know the way we got to meet was when I came back, we did a couple things where we had like, I think there were some workshops in clinic with some coaches and stuff, and you and I'd exchange ideas. And I always relate the story that when the first time I think we met, Coach Muth, who's the football coach in Yankton, was an assistant. He goes, man, I love that you guys could kind of get after it because we'd change ideas. He goes, and then you guys would still go have a burger afterwards. I'm like, well, we're just talking like concepts and theories, and that's what I love. And I tell people all the time, and I'm not just saying that because you're on the show, but you're one of the best physical therapists I've been around. I've been around a lot of folks. And just the idea is that you have what you do and you're really, really great at what you do, but you're always looking and open to concepts. And I know you're always studying to look in. Where do you think, like, what gives that driving force for you to always find different ways or open the doors? Because I know a lot of professionals, especially that have been doing it for a few years. So you've been doing it for more than 5, right? A few years, kind of get locked into like, well, this is I'm throwing the mud and this is what's stuck on the wall and that's what I'm going to work with. But I know you kind of still look at different ways of doing things. Where did that come from, or what opens what gives you that mindset?
There's always something out there that things are changing. We're constantly, doing research to find better ways of doing things. You of course know that. You got to stay up with the trends and things. Obviously, you can't throw all the body mechanics, all the little things that you've done over the years, the meat and potatoes of what we do as therapists or trainers or strength conditioning coaches, but there's always new ways of doing things, and different things are proven to not be very, very beneficial. So we've got to stay up on all that stuff. And it's more important, I think, just to be around other professionals that push you,
right?
And not be, thinking you know it all. There's always something to learn for sure.
Let me ask you this. So in the last, let's just use 3 to 5 years, what have you seen that has kind of come into the therapy training area that you think, wow, this is some good stuff, like 1 or 2 things that are good stuff, and then maybe 1 or 2 things that you're like, yeah, this came in and it was, because there's some experts that come out there and say, well, this is the coolest, newest thing. A lot of people try it, but once you start trying it, you're like, this isn't so cool and this isn't so neat. Are there a couple things that you've seen in the last 5 years that have really helped you out as a therapist, and a couple things that maybe you would have thrown out the back door?
One thing that's really been amazing to work with is blood flow restriction training. That's just something that we started dabbing in here a little bit the last couple of years, but it's been things that people have been doing around the country for the last, I'd say, 10 years on and off. But it's an amazing thing to use a blood pressure cuff and occlude the blood through the leg and try to build muscle mass for patients who have just had surgery so they don't lose all that muscle mass. That's one of the main problems we have after surgery is people lose all kinds of muscle mass due to braces they have to put on or just not being able to strength train and load, which is what you would obviously do well.
Right.
But that's one thing I would say that's changed a lot. We use that early on after ACL injuries, but I think it's helped a lot to help reduce all the atrophy or the muscle wasting that happens after a major surgery. And then another thing I think it's really changed what I do is a lot of instrument-assisted soft tissue mobilization techniques. We have tools here that we call sound-assisted soft tissue mobilization, where you rub over a muscle and it actually will vibrate and tell you there's maybe some adhesions or some different things in there that need to be trying to break through. I don't know if you actually break through adhesions when you're doing soft tissue work, but you're increasing blood flow and just letting things heal, and I think that's been a huge thing. Patients can use these instruments to help recover quicker and get their muscles to function better after a bad, hard, tough workout or after an injury or something.
Right.
Of that nature.
Now, let me ask you this, because I know some guys, this was in the bodybuilding world, that would do the blood flow restrictions, like you said, 8-10 years ago when this was kind of the thing. And it wasn't a monitored blood pressure cuff.
No.
It was like they're using it almost like a tourniquet to do some exercises. And same thing with like scraping, and you'll see some folks that maybe don't have the knowledge and the background. You want to talk a little bit about, because somebody hears this at home, pulls it up online and goes, oh, I'm going to put a tourniquet on my leg, or I'm going to take a piece of metal, a screwdriver, and start scraping my muscles. Maybe go a little bit detail for those that are listening. It's like, because there are some self-help things that they can do, but where's that line between, yes, a professional can do this, here's some things you can do, and then like I try to tell some buddies that are bodybuilders, like I'm doing this restriction, I'm like, dude, you just can't put a tourniquet on and leave it on for 3-4 minutes because you're going to do more damage than help.
I think you definitely have to go to a professional that has a cuff that's certified. We use Delphi's system. It's called Personal Blood Flow Restriction Training. Every time we put it on anybody, we take whatever is necessary to occlude their blood flow. So it's personalized to that person. Plus the cuffs are nice and wide. Like what you're saying, back in the old days, they used these narrow little cuffs that were very dangerous because that puts a lot of pressure
Right.
on one area. And so the cuffs that we use are wider, and they go way up on the upper part of the hip or the upper part of the shoulder, and that helps to just diffuse some of the force that's put on there. And then again, we usually function when we do strength training, it's low-level exercise. So you do one set of 30 repetitions at 80% of the maximum occlusion rate that it takes to occlude your blood flow. And then you do one set of 30, then it's 3 sets of 15 after that. So it's very low level. And I might even just do something like seated knee extensions to help somebody with their quad. If we get them up and standing and do squats, we don't use any weight. So like you're saying, somebody would think, yeah, I'll just go squat 225 with this blood flow on. They would hurt themselves badly.
And there's guys that done that.
Yes, it's very low level stuff. And then getting back to your question about soft tissue mobilization.
Right.
I think most people can get by with foam rollers.
Yeah, we have, right behind, we got the foam rollers and that
Foam
stuff.
rollers,
too.
sticks, soft tissue molds are excellent to do, and it's good to do sometimes before activity, but also sometimes after to recover the next day. And you don't have to beat yourself up like you do a full workout with people sometimes in 5 minutes. It shouldn't be something that you're spending 20, 30 minutes on. It should be something you're just activating muscle, trying to get some blood flow in there. I don't think anybody is scraping adhesions out of muscle or anything like that. They're just increasing blood flow and loosening things up.
So when should they, and I know this is kind of almost, we'll talk about this again later too, but when should somebody go to like, okay, I'm using a foam roller, I'm using a tennis ball, I'm using those type of things, or say, you know what, I really should come see you to get, you know, like what level or what point do you say, hey, I think this, you know, scraping would really help you more than you just doing foam rolling? What would you say to an athlete or just a general population person, maybe guys that are running half marathons and marathons, to go, you know, would this come in, if I came in and helped, or should I just stick with the foam rolling? Or some guys try that and go, I'm really not seeing the benefit of this. Where's that line that you'd say like, hey, maybe come in and we can get you helped out a little bit?
I would say if somebody's just having chronic pain, where they're constantly having pain for long periods of time, and they've tried some of these techniques and they only last temporarily, like a day of relief or something like that. And just remember, when we do any one of these techniques, it's just one piece of the pie. We're not just doing scraping or blood flow restriction. We're also looking at postural awareness. We're looking at how they move, how do they load themselves, what's their body mechanics when they try to jump, run, squat, hinge, whatever they might be doing, deadlift. We look at all that stuff as well. We're not just looking at, oh, I think I'll just get somebody here and scrape them and that's all we do. We're also looking at, okay, I got to increase mobility in this area, or I got to improve strength here, or stability here in the core, or whatever it might be. So it's all just one piece of the pie.
And I love that, because that's what you guys do. I know it's not just, well, here's a problem, let's fix it. It's like you look and say, well, why are you having this problem? Yeah. And back up. So let me ask you this. How have you seen over the last 5 to 10 years physical therapy change? Because I think, you know, it's definitely changed as a profession with, you know, the way payments are set up. Yes. And all those other things. Can you talk a little bit about that without probably getting too political or too chomping anybody too bad from that standpoint, but how the business has changed in the last?
It's changed a lot. There's a lot of insurance companies that only allow us a certain number of visits per diagnosis. Let's say you have an ACL injury or you have a rotator cuff injury. There's a lot of insurances that say 20 visits, that's all you get. Now, not everybody can be fixed in 20 visits. Not everybody can rehab, you know, fully after 20 visits. Some people need 40 visits, some need 60, some can be done in 10 though. Everybody's a little bit different, but it's just frustrating to have that restriction on you that says, oh, you got to be done in 20 visits, and so then we have to adjust our treatment from the beginning. Like sometimes we want to see somebody 3 times a week to try to get them going on the right track, and we can't do that. We have to see them once a week, because if we see them once a week we only get 20 weeks then of therapy. And sometimes ACL programs, if we don't have a strength conditioning thing, might go for 9 months. Usually we don't let anybody back to sports anymore for 9 months, which I think has been a great trend. I think, speaking of trends, is ACL injuries, for instance, used to be, you'd go to the doctor who would send you back to the sports the fastest, 5-6 months. I'll get you back in 5 months. Well, that's not safe. A lot of new studies are coming out that show that athletes that go back to sports before 9 months are, I can't remember what the stat was, 3 to 5 times more likely to have injury. I can't remember what the exact study showed, but it was a recent one. And that's a dangerous
When I was just reading a deal too, that they're saying it's not just necessarily the knee, it's other
The other
area below, other knee or like a hip or
Yeah.
something, because the body compensates for what's going. So many times we compensate, right? That's what you find out.
Oh, totally, yes. People might be able to get through. Athletes are some of your best compensators out of anybody.
Yeah,
They
especially
figure out a
higher
way to get
level.
their body to do something that it probably shouldn't do, but they'll figure out a way to do it at the same level that maybe that someone else would be that's functioning at an efficient level. They will do it at a high level, but break something to do it.
Yeah.
As you've seen all the
Yeah,
time.
we
of
see
course.
that a lot.
Yeah.
And let me ask you this, because and maybe this is me being an old guy. They always say that old guys say this, but I've talked about with other coaches before. You know, like when we were growing up, like you said, you know, you hurt your back lifting weight. Somebody hurt their knee when they got rolled up on a pile, or somebody hit their knee in a basketball game. It just seems like we see so many non-contact injuries
Yeah.
for joints and everything else. What do you think the process and the reasoning is behind that? I mean, I would say, like I said, and I'm an old dog, but 20 years ago, you didn't see the non-contact knee injuries. And I would, like, literally, I say when I went through high school, I think I can name one kid in 5 years.
Yeah.
And it was literally because during football games, somebody hit his leg planted, they rolled up on his knee, and it bent the wrong way. And it's like, well, you can't prevent that.
Right.
But I know when I first came, there was a number of, you know, and we see it every once in a while. It's like a kid jumps, lands, and his knee blows out.
I think it's multifactorial. There are so many factors. I think one simple one is that kids just aren't doing what they used to do as far as climbing. You know, getting on the monkey bars and just going up and down up there, just running around. They got so many other opportunities for entertainment with video games and iPads and all these different things that most of us never had. We never used. We were just outside playing all the time. So I think that's one factor. I think sometimes youth sports has been a factor where you've got a lot of kids doing way too much activity that's specialized too early. Like, you know, when we were kids, you played whatever sport was in
Seasons, yeah.
It was football season, you played football. It was basketball, you played basketball. Baseball, you know, in the summer, and whatever else. And you played for fun. I think kids are competing at too high of a level too early a lot of times, and that leads to tension and stress, and I think that leads to things breaking down. And then repetitive natures of some of these sports, like shooting a basketball over and over and over and over, and the same way we're throwing a baseball over and over and over and over again, that leads to more injuries. Where we used to play, but you're playing 4 or 5 guys against 4 or 5 guys, not 9 guys at a time. You're playing baseball or 10. You just be out there playing in the yard or something, and everybody get a lot of turns at hitting and throwing. Where now people are just throwing and doing repetitive motions over and over and over.
And at a lot younger age too. So let me ask you this, and I know we can get into this. This would be a whole hour discussion. But how do you think you change that mindset then? From, you know what I mean? Because we do. I every year it seems like I get a parent or a couple parents or a group of parents saying, "Hey, we got a team together, and they're 8 years old, and now we got to start, you know, doing specific training because I got to get my 8-year-old ready to play when he's going to be in high school, and then he has to go play college, whether it's basketball, baseball, a sport." And I'm like, man, we just got to get these kids, like you said, be able to move. How do you think we get back to that and get out? I always say, you know, the competition level and the just repetitive, like, I'm going to be a baseball guy and I'm going to play. Some of those young kids are playing how many games during the summer? You know, they play a lot of different games. And the other thing is, I'll throw in there and let you kind of give your 2 cents, but it is almost, it's like I'm playing a summer basketball league, I'm playing a basketball, I'm on an all-star team, I'm playing on 3 different basketball teams, and that repetition, one, your thoughts on that, but then how do we get back to where our elementary kids and our junior high kids, it goes back to they're just learning how to play and movement skills.
You're hitting all the things that I would talk about. It's just
How do you think we do
moderation.
that?
Moderation is the key to everything. I don't think there's anything wrong with youth sports. It's keeping them in moderation, and you got to have coaches that are willing to take on the right mentality. There are plenty of programs that are ACL prevention programs that can be worked right into practice too, instead of focusing on just tons and tons of skill activities. And you know, old school coaches used to say, well, okay, we're going to run them into the ground. Well, we know that that's not a good idea.
Right.
A fatigued athlete usually is someone who gets hurt. So you should be able to blend in your conditioning into practice, into your sport and skill development. You shouldn't have to do conditioning at the end of practice or conditioning to punish people. That's not a smart thing to do most of the time for people. You know, people want to put the law down and say, okay, you're screwing off, you're going to go run. Well, that's probably not the best thing. There's other ways of doing that, and I think that's a factor sometimes. And fatigue is a big factor in injuries. But I don't know what the answer is. It's hard.
Do you think we're moving away from teaching? I mean, I just see it even too, like in, to teach those movement skills you and I talk about all the time. You just talk about squatting, hinging,
Yes.
just proper pulling position, pushing position. Where is that taught anymore? And to be able to back off to do those things, like, do you see that as you start seeing like athletes and like younger athletes, and even up to their 20s and 30s, the movement patterns? Are you seeing like a deficiency in those movement patterns, or what do you see as a physical therapist? Because we notice it up here in the weight room.
Yeah.
I mean, if we can get the kids at a younger age, it's easier to correct those things. But we'll get some older kids that's like that haven't maybe done a lot of stuff. We're like, holy cow, like their movement patterns really suck.
I think you see more of a gap between the haves and have-nots than what we used to see. There used to be a general level of fitness that was much higher than I think what it is today. You either have elites or you have people that don't do anything. And I think that's one of the trends I see is, I think you're right though too. I see a lot of people that maybe just don't have a good awareness of how to use their body. They don't have this just innate balance or sense of awareness of their bodies that people used to have, maybe because they were always playing, climbing,
Chores,
just lifting things that were awkward, whatever, lifting hay bales, lifting rocks in the
Right.
field, doing things like that. I think that's a big factor.
So you seeing the gap, not just then athletes, but as, and I'm just saying our generation, as we start to get older, that gap increases too, because like somebody who's 50, 60, 70 years old, are you seeing more from that standpoint because the reason they're having problems at a later age
Yes.
is because they can't move properly, or is it because we're not as active, like even, as we're